You know exactly what you clicked on for this video.
Hi everyone, I'm Celeste and welcome to my channel. My channel is all about cosplay. I teach you tutorials on how to make the outfit, how to do the makeup so you can become the character of your dreams. Today's cosplay is just as the title says, you are going to be seeing me make PS5-chan. PS5 actually revealed itself to the public eye this year. PS5 is actually the newest addition to Sony PlayStation gaming console series. I am really excited to see what is going to come from it, what games are going to be out there. Also, there were so many artists out there who drew PS5 in a Jijinka version. Jijinka stands for like the human version. Jijinka is like a Japanese term for it. Also, I'm super excited because I worked so hard on this and I think it was just so much fun. If it's the first time that you're coming to my channel, thank you, welcome. Make sure to click that red button down below to subscribe to never miss out on any future cosplay content. And let's go ahead and get into the tutorial and showing you guys how I made this baddie. Ow! For the leotard base of this project, I will be using Simplicity Riddle Pattern 8286. I like the angles on the cut of the suits, so I will be using this pattern.
You guys have no idea how long it took just to separate these out. I started actually cutting it out to this specific pattern size. You don't really have to do that because it takes forever and you might not need that pattern piece. So instead, just cut around every like big corner kind of, making sure that it's just cut out. Learned that the hard way. Go ahead and find out which pieces you're going to need. I will be doing B.
Before pinning your pattern pieces to your fabric, make sure to iron your patterns so they lay flat.
We just pinned this down and now we have to cut it out. Don't mind about this. This is going to be cut off anyways. So now that we have all the pieces laid out to where they need to be, I'm going to unpin them and pin them together and then sew them together. Apparently in the instructions it says you should have bias tape, single fold bias tape right there. And guess who came unprepared for this tutorial? Part of this part. So I was like almost done just whizzing through on part 5 now, and like this part is like super made. It looks like a garbage bag, doesn't it? And so now I don't have this, so I won't have bias tape for that part. Poopy. So I used some leftover tissue paper to create this little vest pattern. So this vest pattern, I only did half of it because I'm going to double it up. And here, I'm going to throw it on right now. So I'm just going to cut it into 3 parts. I'm going to make this as long as possible. So what I'm probably going to do is grab some more of the tissue paper and then tape it down. Where's my tape? I'm going to tape it down to the bottom and then I'll get the length that I want. Alright, here is our finished vest pattern. I have to just cut this part out and then I'll be using the Snow White collar piece to attach later. But let's go ahead, and this is sectioned out. This is the middle, front, and back. I should probably write that down. Hold on. I'm having a slight dilemma of using this white pleather that I used for Hestia versus this super vinyl kind of material. I think this one wouldn't look as sleek as this one in pictures, but the downfall is I definitely don't have enough of this one. So I might just make the back part and the side part out of this fabric and then see what I can make out of this part. Alright, here we go. No turning back. Alright, maybe these smaller scissors will fit. I'm going to take the pieces I just cut out and lay it on the lining fabric and use those as my new pattern pieces, and then cut them out again. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I went ahead and put together the inside lining, which is this really beautiful cerulean stretch taffeta. So far, this is what it's going to look like. I also have the collar pinned. This is the same color as my Snow White cosplay, but it's more rectangle. I promise you when I actually put it on, it folds upwards. But in order to fix that and make sure it stays upwards, I'm going to sew it all together and then add some zip ties to make it stand up straight. If I wanted to, I could actually sew a channel in the back and make sure it stands up straight there and then sew it into the actual back of it. But my back does not have a piece for it, so I think I'm going to leave it plain. Originally, I had this collar sewn down completely. Instead, I undid the stitches for it and then attached it separately onto the pieces that it corresponded with. You can see that I picked it out here. This way I can slide in some of the boning that I'm going to put in the front, so it will make this stand up nice without it like becoming droopy. I do want this to be a little bit more stiff without using interfacing, so that's why I'm going to be using these bad boys, aka the zip ties that I used for Snow White. Now what I'm going to do is actually going to take this edge and finger press it down and then sew it down just like the rest of this part. In a certain area, I'm actually going to leave it a little bit open so it's easier for me to slip in these. I think I'm actually going to separate my coat and make these into tails at the bottom so they can flare out a little bit better. So what I did do was mark it, and I know that there's going to be holes here. I'm going to cut the middle of this piece and the lining piece all the way up to this point, then sew them together inside out, and then close it. Yeah, that's about it. Off camera, I went ahead and finished the back split. I sewed it together and then top stitched it. I even added more zip ties in it so it would help the flare and have structure. Now line up all the sides so it's even and cut the bottom hemline. To finish off the hemline, I'm going to cut up this textured black fabric. First, I'm going to use a ruler to measure out how wide I want the base to be. Then I cut 2 pieces for each side of the vest. I'm going to take this newly cut, really amazing piece of fabric. You can see it's kind of like trippy. And I'm going to pin it to the bottom of this now that it's nice and cut out. I'm going to replicate how this looks. This took a little bit of hand sewing, but this is the bottom and the base of the PS5. So that's what we're emulating with that. In this one, I actually put a lot of zip ties in the bottom, so it kind of keeps that rigid look, and so it's kind of like flat when it hangs. So you can see it's super flat and it's going to be super strong. I'm going to push out these I'm going to iron out these seams. But first, let's go ahead and sew this on. I fast forward a bit, but before I actually sew down this next side, or the proper way, kind of like a bias tape, you want to go ahead and sew down the top lip and make sure it's closed. That way you have no raw edges. I sewed down another line down the actual fabric of the jacket so I can insert the zip ties in it. If you have boning, use boning. You can see there's zip ties in here so it lays nice and straight and it won't buckle when wearing it, so it will have that nice side-by-side look. What I'm going to do now is fold it all the way over and use this top line as a guide, and then I'm going to hand stitch it through. First, I'm going to fold it over, hand stitch this part together, and then sew it here. When it's done, it should look something like this with a really nice clean hand stitch side-by-side piece, and then you can't tell the difference of where it started or stopped, and it's going to be a little bit puffy, which I love that. I think it looks really computer-esque. Some of the scrap pieces of this pleather over here that I used for the sides of my jacket, and I'm actually going to be cutting it up and sewing it into a nice little arm guard. So what I'm doing is taking 2 long rectangles that my hand and arm can fit into, sewing it at the sides. I'm going to first stop here at this area. I'm going to sew it down into a nice V, or hem it into a nice V so it becomes the thumb hole, and then sew it back together. And then I'm going to fold over the top and the rest, hem that down and cut off the excess. When I have the excess, I'm going to actually have little scraps like this, and that's going to be cabbage, as Bernadette Banner says. And then I'm just going to hem this, and the sleeves are done and then ready for decaling. I went out and purchased these half gloves. I didn't want to make them. Honestly, it's just easier sometimes to go out and buy something. These are really weird. I actually really love how clean and sleek these look, so I might actually hold off on decaling until I shoot it, but I really love how clean this is. Using foam scraps, you can see that I cut a lot out here, and test it out, I cut out the PlayStation buttons. So we have triangle, circle, square, and X. Clearly they're not going to be these colors, but first I'm going to create a second layer and make them a little bit thicker so they're not so flimsy on my head. What I'm going to do is put them down on a piece of scrap foam, see if they fit, glue it down, and then cut it out and repeat the process maybe 1 or 2 more times. I have these cut out. I'm going to go ahead and cover them with some glue. This is just hobby glue. I know it's not the best glue, but this is what I have on hand. We're still in quarantine. Actually, Denmark's not. But I'm too lazy to go out and buy some more, so I'm going to cover this with glue. Hey, just now gotta let these dry, and then we'll paint them and glue them to some hair clips. Instead of making my buttons actually white, kind of like the new PS5 controller, I decided to pay homage to the past PlayStations and their colors, so I'm going to be coloring these blue, turquoise, magenta, and purple. I also got this idea from a different art, which is from MyCelesteOrchid. I found this also on Twitter. I couldn't find the exact hair clips that I wanted, so I'll be using hairpins and a headband for adding the buttons on.
I have to say, PS5-chan turned out really cute. I love these little hair accessories that I made. I honestly thought that they were going to look really silly, but you know what? The little buttons turned out to be one of my favorite parts of this overall costume. The bodysuit itself, I think I might actually pair it with a nice bottom such as jeans or a skirt to wear out and represent my gamer nerdiness. If you guys enjoyed this cosplay, make sure to check out some of the other cosplays I have floating around here. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe by clicking that red button down below to never miss out on any future cosplay content. And of course, remember to stay inspired, be creative, and I will see you in a future video. Bye!